Mike at it. I was looking at this chapter and it brought up some memories as I was scrolling through. I actually can see my phone without squinting. It's unbelievable, these little readers here. So I'd rather you judge me for wearing readers than judge me for the squinting that I've been getting, the reports that I've been doing. Anyway, when I think about working with others, I think about this chapter. I'm just going to cover some high points and then y'all can start reading, but I just want to run with my thoughts about it. A lot of the things bringing up memories of the past, maybe a little AA history here. I think it's important because a couple of the places that I'm going to mention are gravely misunderstood and taken to mean something when they were meant to mean something else. The first thing on 89 is it talks about perhaps you are not acquainted with anybody who wants to stop. Well, I hate to say it, but that really doesn't apply today, does it? I mean, they bus them in here 2 or 3 at a time. I mean, really the idea of going on H&I to treatment centers really was when they didn't have no buses and they didn't bring them. So now I'm beginning to wonder if that even has a certain amount of redundancy because, the idea of the age-old 12-step that I've only been on a couple of in my younger years here in the early 90s, late 80s, I went on a couple. One guy had a gun in there. I mean, it was, that was crazy. And another a guy was flailing around on the floor, and they had to call some kind of paramedics. It was a very scary situation. But all in all, the idea of having to go find somebody, possibly in one of those 2 states, which is impossible to work with somebody, by the way, has fallen by the wayside because there's tons of people being brought in the very meeting that we call home now. And that's basically where we find people to work with. And I think that bears important to say how a lot applies from the old days, but some things have changed because of efficiency. And I believe that bringing folks in a van to a meeting is very efficient. And at least you know that somebody, if they've come there from a van, that there's somebody that's already wanting help. And they probably don't have a gun, and they probably don't need the paramedics called on them. So I'm just going to throw that out there. So that sounds much more efficient than the 2 that I just described. The thing that I was mentioning that seems to be misunderstood, don't start off as an evangelist or reformer. And that ties to 103 where it talks about don't exhibit a hatred for drinking as an institution. A lot of times the evangelist or reformer quote is somehow tied to what goes on inside of the meeting. Don't be too passionate. Don't be too excited about your recovery. Don't talk about the big book too much. That's not what they're referring to at all. What they're referring to is the Washingtonians, which was before the Oxford group. They were a group that made you sign a pledge that you would swear off alcohol for good, which ties into 85. We have not sworn off. And they didn't have no steps, though, so they would stand on the corners and hold up signs speaking of the ills of alcohol and how they hated alcohol and stuff like that. That's what they're referring to, evangelist or reformer, because people did not stand for that. And the Washingtonians all got drunk because they didn't have no steps. And that little temperance pledge that people signed really didn't keep them safe, did it? So I think the lesson from the Washingtonians is what's being referred to here. 90 to me, and I can remember this from early in my recovery. I used to hear people say, "Oh, we went and found somebody and we bought them a 5th of liquor and got them drunk and tried to take them to the emergency room or something." And it never set well with me. It never set well with me. The idea of wait for a lucid interval here on 90 is always something that's jumped out to me. That means wait till the dude is not drunk. Because you can't talk to somebody that's drunk. I mean, I think that's some important instructions that I kind of know why that was being thrown around early in recovery, because I know how many people actually read the book now. And it's no wonder that those kind of things are being thrown around. So, because clearly that goes against what this just says. It says it right here, don't deal with a man when he's drunk or crazy. 90 talks about see you're a man alone if possible. And I used to, when I first read that, I remember thinking, does that mean I'm supposed to go talk to somebody by myself? Because all I've ever heard was if you go talk to somebody, if you do go on a 12-step call, don't go alone. And I've always thought that was very good advice. But upon closer inspection of 91, it's talking about don't see your man in the presence of his family. That's what 91 is talking about. Don't pin him up with his family and expect to talk honestly. Hell, he's in the firing zone right there. So if you do talk to someone outside of here, chances are their family's not coming in here. It's probably a good thing. But you will have people from time to time try to come to a meeting who's not in the program. They'll have some badge from UAB nursing school, or somebody who's just idly curious, wants to come check out the freak show. And I really don't, that doesn't usually sit well with me. I don't like somebody coming to see how the freaks act, I kind of like the idea of being in a room with us. I can speak more freely that way. 92, the thing that jumps off to me is the thing that talks about tell your man he's doomed if he doesn't realize his predicament. And I think that that's important to say. I think that it begins the idea that somebody who's working with somebody in a sponsorship role sometimes has to say something that may upset the person you're working with. You have to startle them with the truth. You can't always candy coat it, pat them on the head, love them till they love themselves. I think it's very important to say that, sometimes you have to startle them with the necessity of this thing and the urgency of it. 93 talks about the guy who he comes at you thinking he knows religion better than you do. And I think this is important instructions that it gives me, because it says, hey, you may know more than me about religion, but let me break it down to you. Why are you drunk? If you knew it so good, why is drunk? Why are you drunk? So maybe you should come off that high horse that you're on about how well you know the Bible, and realize that maybe you need something more, because if that was going to work for you, it would have worked for you. I think that's real important. And believe me, I've seen a lot of people come in dealing with that type of situation. For me, I'm not saying, I know the Bible as good as anybody. I quote scripture all day long when you tie it to the big book. But what I'm saying is that I need a combination of both. I can't just go to church. It generally, by itself, doesn't work for us. And I think that's the lesson of 93. 94 is the part where it talks about perhaps you have disturbed him with your talk of alcoholism. This is more to the good. I believe that's another aspect that ties to 92, where it talks about sometimes you got to tell the guy the truth. Even if you know he might be upset at you, at least you got to tell him the truth. It may disturb him, but that's okay. 95 to me has always had very interesting instruction that seems to be overlooked by the vast majority of people, because 95 is where it talks about if he's interested in what you have, ask him to read the book. Because people always say, I ask people to read the first 164 pages and get back with me and say, hold on a minute, no, that's too much, man, that's too serious. But 95 really says, ask him to read the book if you've talked to him, if he's interested in what you have to offer. Because I think it's a symbol of willingness. And if you think that I'm mistaken about that, if you go to 96 where it talks about, right in the middle of the page, perhaps you're making your second visit. He has read this volume and is willing to go through with the steps. So if you want to get technical about what the book says, I'm supposed to ask him to read the book. That's not the stories, by the way. Read the book, first 164 pages. And then I'm not even supposed to have a second visit with the dude until he's done it. If you want to get technical, which some people do, some people like that kind of stuff. I'm just saying it's food for thought what the book talks about the value of getting the guy to at least read the book and show some willingness. Because I think any talk is cheap is what it's trying to tell me. Plus, 96, 97, and 98 are the pages where it goes into talking about don't let the guy con you. Don't be his. Don't let him con you into giving him rides or cigarettes or all these things, because the bottom of 96 talks about if you allow him to do that, you're helping him to be insincere. And I think that's really important. I think that's really important that we don't allow somebody to be insincere, because when they put those material things, like it talks about on into 97, before a recovery, we're putting the cart before the horse. And I think that's real important to mention, because I know a lot of people, I see that happening and going on. And you want to help people, so you say, I need to buy them cigarettes and giving them rides to everywhere. Well, the book makes clear, and 97 also makes clear, it says you may have to let him, it says don't let him live with you for long. If you study AA history, Bill used to let people live in their house, and that's sort of the reference in A Vision for You, where he's talking about you may have to fight with the dude, and he's going to break your shit, and he's going to rip out the keys off your piano and all that. And at the end of all of that insanity, where the dude committed suicide upstairs by running a hose from the oven downstairs and put the gas in the room, and that's how the guy committed suicide. All of that stuff, after it was all over, he goes, man, that was a terrible mistake. I didn't help none of these guys. So I think that's important to know that you should be wary of that. 98 is clearly where it talks about a guy who's crying for those things, those material things, is putting the cart before the horse. It talks about the guy who's crying for money or shelter before conquering alcohol or on the wrong track. We go to extreme measures to provide these very things, but such action is warranted. You know, but it says this may seem inconsistent, but we think it's not. Basically, what it's saying, that the guy that's crying for charity in the ordinarily sense of the word, the one that's really serious, he's not going to be doing that. He's going to be wanting to work the steps, and I think that's really important. 100 is going to be one of my favorite quotes. I know it's Charles's favorite quote, where it talks about, "Thus you and the new man will walk hand in hand, follow the dictates of a higher power, and you will presently live in a new and wonderful world, no matter what your present circumstances." When he says presently, I think it really bears saying that sometimes we have to go through challenges in recovery before we can come out on the other side after that calamity has been matched with serenity. And I'm tying back to 68 where it talks about that. Because a newcomer that reads presently might think, oh, if I just pray hard enough, it's supposed to be remove all my problems. See, it didn't do it. They're lying, and I'm out of here. Well, logically, we have to go through challenges in recovery, and I think it's important. 101 is going to be the classic page where it talks about, hey, newcomer, please work the steps before you try to go back in the crack house and see how your buddies are doing. 101 is the page where it talks about we can go anywhere normal men can go, but with the caveat, this is in the book where people have worked the steps before they got there. It talks about we can go anywhere men can go, free men can go. And I will say, if you're new, I can go to a bar, but I will say that I know for a fact that going to a bar and the trappings of the bar and all the places and doing the stuff, I was just as addicted to the rituals of it than I was of the substance. And when I've been relieved of all that, those bars don't call to me like they used to. Those venues do not call to me. So about the same time you could probably go, you find yourself not gripped with the need to go anymore. And that's called true freedom. And I just wanted to share that with you because that's something to know. But 102, and I'm going to end with this because 103 is the end of the chapter. 102 talks about stay on the firing line of life and God will keep you unharmed. I think that's real important to say because we do have to go out and live life. We do have to go out there. We have to face things in recovery. You may have a job where somebody has alcohol. You may have to go entertain a client. I'm here to say that with these steps and with God on your side, you can do these things. You can't hide away from alcohol and hide in meetings. You have to live life. I have to live life. I have to work the steps, and I can become a free, productive member of society. I know I talked about a lot. I wanted to go through the whole chapter kind of like I did with employers, but we're not skipping this chapter like we did that night. We're going to go through it. Y'all start reading on 89, but I just wanted to throw out some of the high points. Since I was asked, I tried to get out of it, But I wasn't going to come in here and say, he asked me 5 minutes ago, so I hope I can figure something out. No, I got it figured out. Okay, so that's what I wanted to talk to y'all about. So in total, I just talked about employers. I appreciate it, and I'll pass.